Hello humans, hello humans. September 22nd, 9:26 a.m. And wanted to take a few minutes and talk about time for a bit, for a period, for a duration. Because this is going to be very key to all of us over this fall and into winter. I suspect, for a number of different reasons, that we're going to be treated to an exposition on time, whether it'll come from our government or whether it'll come from space aliens, I don't know. But it'll likely be very upsetting to a lot of people. It calls in all kinds of things into question. So the way that the arrival of space aliens, or even the information that space aliens are real and we're freaked out about them coming out of the government, is going to really upset the apple cart for the entire basis. It's going to remove the foundation for all religions, because especially the Abrahamic religions are all built on space alien abuse and Stockholm syndrome. Same thing can be said of the Vedic religions in India. So there's going to be major upset in religion around the planet with this admission that space aliens are real. In that same fashion, the exposition on time that will also be coming out, the description of time, some aspects of it, I doubt they'll have it accurately, if it's our government, or it may be demonstrated. Like I say, I can't tell. It may be demonstrated by the space aliens. But this exposition on time is going to totally upend all of our physics, right? And immediately, in like one fell swoop, remove the any lingering authority for guys doing mathematics, physics, any of that kind of shit about the nature of our reality that is in any way based on the Einsteinian hoax, okay? And so this event, if it's an event, it's in a short period of time, so it could be a discussion, or it could be, like I say, some form of demonstration. Is going to be upending to all of physics, all of, quantum mechanics, all of that kind of stuff is basically going to go by the wayside. String theory is just going to evaporate. Well, somebody will set a torch to it and it'll go psh, like a fuse as we get into this. Anyway, here's what I want to go on about. People actually believe that time travel is possible. Corey Goode made a decent living pretending to be a time traveler on Gaia TV, and there's any number of other hoaxers, from this John Titor guy to all of the new ones, and all of these kind of people that are claiming to be time travelers. And time travel is not possible. Because the future and the past do not exist. The only thing that does exist is the ever-present now. And so conceptually, you would have to think about it. You're surrounded in a bubble of now, all the way around you. It encompasses everything in the planet, and if you think about it, well, hell, that now extends beyond just me, beyond just my local environment. It's the whole planet. The whole planet is having now. And it's not just our planet. It's now up on the moon. And it's now out on our sun and Mars, et cetera, et cetera. So now is a big place. And then when you really think about it, you understand that all of the materium is in what is known as the ever-present now. Because no matter where you go in our material universe, it's always now. And it'll always forever be now. This is why the Shinshin Soitsu colleges describe and teach the now as the eternal now. I'd like thinking of it as the ever-present now, more than the eternal or perpetual now, because the eternal or the perpetual now, linguistically, ties you to a locale. But if you say the ever-present now, then you get that concept that if there were that instantaneously, if there were no barriers to communication, I could talk to someone on the other side of the materium, you know, or vast quantities of distance away, and it's still this now. So anyway, so in order for you to time travel, the concept is that you would take yourself like a cutout out of Photoshop or something, and you would plop yourself into the past or into the future. So this is what Corey Goode claimed, basically, is that he worked for 20 years as a slave for this space military, and then at the end of that 20 years, when his usefulness was over, they took all this energy and put him back in time and regressed him in age. And it's like, holy shit, guy, you know, liar extraordinaire, which was proven in court. You know, he admitted it was all lies. But in order for you to have time travel, you would have to conceptualize that time was filled with like little ever-present nows that are somehow discrete and different from every other ever-present now, such that you could transit from one to another. Just saying, going back in time. Conceptually, it makes it a lot easier. So you're seeing all of reality as all of these little bubbles all interconnected. And it's not that way. It's much more, if we want to use a bubble effect here, it's much more as though the ever-present now extends out a little tiny bit ahead of you and a little tiny bit behind you. And in reality, that is the case. Now is not this mere instant. It is somewhat wide. And we can get into that at some other time. And it's in that width of the now, ahead of and past your personal mental experience, that we get this law of attraction stuff that actually works. And so if you know how to do that, that's where sorcery lie, okay? And that's what the magicians are always trying to get. But they don't understand that they have to do it in the ever-present now. It's not material, and it's done via energy in a very particular space within the ever-present now. Anyway, so the idea that you could go backwards in time and jump into some other ever-present now presumes that that ever-present now is kept forever in abeyance without change, etc., 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 which is a horseshit concept. It just doesn't happen. It doesn't work that way. Now, the same thing is true of the future. The future has yet to emerge. It's somewhat, it's fair to say it's amorphous, okay? It's spongy, and it can develop in many different ways depending on where the sponge decides to extrude into our common shared reality. In the ever-present now, which is all that exists, you know, the air you're going to breathe right now doesn't exist in the future. You're breathing it right now. Air you will breathe in the future won't aid you now, because you will be in that future's past, and that future will be the ever-present now, with time sort of flowing through it or around it, if you want to think of it that way. Okay, and that is time with a lowercase t. That is duration. This is how humans think of and measure time. We don't measure time in any other of its aspects than duration. So humans are very simple. We have the duration of the analog clock, tick, 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 tick. We have the duration of the digital clock flipping over the digits, and that's really all we think about in terms of time. Other people, I mean, some people like Kozyrev in the 60s, and he thought about time, and actually earlier, thought about time in different ways and derived that there are indeed other aspects of time, and that time is dynamic. That is to say, you can do things that change the effect of time within the materium. Now, there's going to be some debate as to whether you're actually changing any of those aspects of time or whether you're altering the relationship of the materium to that time at that moment. And we can get into that. It gets real deep. But we're not going to do it today. What we're going to talk about today is the potential that we will get a demonstration. That really is the best word. A demonstration about time that will be upsetting to all of the scientists, to all the physicists, all the temporal mathematicians, all these kind of people that have to think about time and so on. So Cozy Reb notes that time relative to duration is not fixed, right? And that much of time enters into this area of perception and our interaction of perception with the nature of that time itself and the other dynamic properties of which we are unaware, most of us, most of the time. Okay, now time creates all of the worlds, all of the universe, all of the materium, and it does so 22 trillion times a second, okay? It's actually, all right, so I'll get into the actual fact of the matter. The consciousness creates the material universe on a rate of Avogadro's number in terms of time. A number so big, 6.01085565 to 10 to the 24th, or 10 to the 23rd. In terms of speed, right? That's the speed of consciousness. From that, we get the materium. As the materium is created by this pulse, that is time in all caps, T-I-M-E, all in caps, big time, as it creates the material universe that we're looking at right now, that I'm using to transmit all of this kind of stuff, and all the energy in that material universe, that rate from 3 times Avogadro's number, so 3 times 6.0108 to the 10 to the 23rd gets downshifted into the material density of the materium. So it loses energy, so to speak. That energy gets used up or transmitted or changed, and we end up with a material reality that we're in right now, operating at 22 trillion times a second. Cozy Reb and, Vernadsky, another Russian who did, he was an astrophysicist, and he did also, just like Cozy Reb, Vernadsky did calculations and found out that the base pulse rate of the galaxy was 770 kilometers a second. Okay, so the whole galaxy shifts 770 kilometers every second. He had it broken down even further. I'm hoping I'm doing the math right and converting it to seconds, because there's no point in talking in subdivisions any smaller than that for a general audience. Okay, so we live in a world that's recreated and destroyed 22 trillion times per second. That imparts impulse into the world in the form of duration and energy. A tricky concept to get your mind around is that there's 22 trillion pulses per second, and there's 22 trillion voids per second, where the universe is actually destroyed and nothing exists. Now, those voids do not have duration. So it's not like it's 44 trillion times per second, it's only 22 trillion times per second, even though there's actually 44 trillion slices. 22 trillion of those slices, the void slices, have no duration. So from the perspective of us guys here in the materium, they don't exist unless you go hunting for them. They're pertinent, they're necessary, and I'm not going to go into that. Okay, so the ever-present now is that portion of the dynamic of energy within universe that is trapped in a form that the perceptive mind, or the perceiving mind, may interact with. And so it is, it's true, it's only 1/22 trillionth of a second large. That's how big the ever-present now is 1/22 trillionth of a second. So it's not very big, right? But to the perceiving mind, it's actually very much larger than that for a number of different reasons when you're actually living within that now. When you pull yourself back to the now, you're not living in a second, because you can divide seconds any number of ways you choose. We see this frequently with people involved in traffic accidents where they say everything slowed down. You know, it was just amazing. Same thing that martial artists will say, you know, that they're in the now, and they're in that moment, they call it, but and they're able to move with such blinding speed and everything because they are living in that particular time slice of that moment, and everybody else is living in somewhere else, so to speak. And so they, you know, it's a very effective thing for martial artists to be centered in the now. And that's why a lot of the martial arts spend a lot of their time, which is the point where you pick up and deal with these time energies. If you live in the now, you are where most of the energy of the materium is. So if we think about it in a correct way, there's a couple of things that are materially obvious. One of them is that the amount of energy involved in maintaining matter, the whole E equals mc squared shit from Einsteinian the Great Hoster, the amount of energy in maintaining the matter of universe is basically infinitesimally small. Like on the order of, I did some calcs with these guys once. We were just spitballing and guessing, really, but we did find a consistent methodology, and we mashed around with some numbers and came out with like 0.00019% of the energy in all of the energy in universe is what's tied up in matter, and everything else is dynamic energy in life. It is this energy barrier that prevents races, you know, species, intelligent beings from creating life. You know, so no, and the humans have had the second chromosome removed, and we have that smooth spot in our chromosome, or in our DNA, that shows that it used to exist there. And so we're unlike primates. But no, they didn't create us. They can't create life. You have to understand the connection of life to dynamic energy and to stuff outside the materium. And so it's incredibly difficult to create life. This is why the ancient records recorded that it took the Elohim 192 years of fertilization experiments to come up with Adam. Okay, so it took them 192 years trying to do these with genetic experiments before they were able to implant an egg that produced the first modern human, according to the descriptions coming out of the Talmud or the Torah and you know, the Bible, both of which are bogus and it's not true. It's not factual. But these other extra Bible, extra biblical, and extra Torah books do describe the Elohim screwing around for 192 years. Now, there's some differences in some of the books as to where they were located when they were doing this, and maybe it was 2 breeding centers, I don't know. But they were saying, a lot of it were saying they were doing it in Persia, in that area. Anyway, so time is very, very, very difficult to conceptualize, especially living in it and having to deal with duration, which masks most of the other dynamic properties of time. Time at the scale of life is extremely difficult to, that so far as I can see, can't be engineered. Okay, so you can't create life, and you this is where it gets back to some of this horse shit that a lot of the woo people are peddling, like space alien hybrids. And it's like, okay, people, you don't need the actual tissue in order to create a DNA sequence. Once you know the DNA sequence, you just get the chemicals and put them together and you've got the DNA. You don't actually have to go and extract any tissue from that animal. Once you fully understand the DNA sequence, you can replicate it on your own in a lab without them. Especially some species more advanced than us in general biological principles. So that's one thing. And then space alien hybrids make no sense at all, because you can do that without, you could do a hybrid without even having to know about humans. You could imagine a human and, create the DNA for it, et cetera, et cetera. So this idea that there's, space alien hybrids coming across the border from the south, that freaks Carrie Cassidy out, as well as the space alien AI that's going to eat your liver. Anyway, so outside of her fear-based world, back to our reality of time, here's the thing about the ever-present now. In the ever-present now, you are immune from hoaxes, right? Because you're not thinking about the future. When you think about the QFS or the Nasara-Gasara shit, none of it's now. Absolutely none of it is now. All of it's in the future. You have to work in the future for a supposed interview in the future where supposedly your thinking will be vetted by some mid-level manager in a bank. And supposedly if you pass that vetting, you'll get vast quantities of money and be made rich without any kind of effort on your part other than this working on this supposed plan. That, it's never going to happen. It's never going to be implemented. So they're getting you to think about the future the whole time. And in that sense, you discount what's going on in the present. Oh, sure, yeah, I'll give you $2,000 to help me plan, and go through a mock interview and see if I can get my questions right, all of this kind of stuff, right? Because you're not thinking about the present, right? Someone comes on up and says, hey, I want you to give me $2,000 for me to pretend to be a bank manager and ask you a bunch of questions. You'd say, fool, get out of here. The next thing out of your mouth better be goodbye. So you see that it's getting you to think about the future or the past, getting your mind ahead or behind, that allows them to manipulate you and manipulate your thinking and keep you in a state whereby they can continuously manipulate you to do what they want. That's what all of the climate crisis. It's never now, it's never this instant. It's all this shit that supposedly happened in the past with all their fake data trying to affect a future that will not arrive. It'll never be here. And so, it's a scam because they're never talking about what you should be doing now. They want you to do things in the future, not use oil in the future, right? They don't want you to get better at pulling oil out of the ground now, making it cheaper, that kind of thing, or more efficient. So they don't want any of that kind of stuff in the now. They always want to keep you thinking about the future. This is the secret of the, communist Jew takeover. It's the secret of the rabbis. They never talk about the now. They're always constantly on the past and on the future. Anybody. So control systems are always entirely not temporally local to the ever-present now. And if they're to come on in and if anybody's going to try and do a scam on you and you're living in the ever-present now, you'll think, no, I want those $2,000. I'm not going to give them to you for this, for any reason. And, your stated reason is horseshit. You're talking about future that isn't going to affect me, that is just in your mind. And so, that was, by the way, that's one of the ways where you can tell the woo people who are factual and those who are not. Those who are grounded will always be talking about something in the now. They may reference history repeatedly, and they'll be questioning frequently, and they'll be factual about it. So-and-so did this on this day, met with this person over that week at this place. This kind of thing, right? And so those people that are constantly harping on a future that can't be validated or a past that can't be validated, those are the individuals who are trapped in the, in the non-local thinking and are themselves deluded. And many of them, all their goal is simply for you to share their delusion, because at a subconscious level, it helps their mind quiet themselves over this delusion. Oh, if you believe it, it must be true, right? Even though I said it, even though I'm the source for it, if you also believe it, then it must be true. Therefore, I can go on to something else, and my mind doesn't have to sit here and have a mind rat on this, you know, running in a cage. And it gets real complicated, but this relationship with time and our not understanding the other dynamic properties of time is at a root level affecting science and the social order in many, 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 many ways that we're not perceiving, that if we did perceive, probably, or it would certainly have an effect, probably it would be a beneficial effect to be more tied into the real reality of what's going on. Okay, so we have this understanding that the energy involved in time, because it's pulsed through to create life, is the energy that is life. And it's intimately tied in with karma and all of that kind of stuff. You could see that none of that shit's going to be automatically created if it were possible for space aliens to create life. You're not going to have any kind of automatic karmic attachments, which is necessary. You're not going to have any of these other necessary attachments to the infrastructure that is the materium that provides us with all of this, should a species be able to create life. And there's no evidence that any of them can. This is why we also know that no AI will ever become alive. It'll never become self-sensing and self-aware. There is no self there. And so, you know, no worries about AI. There's a lot of social impacts on it using AI, but that's on the humans, not AI itself. AI, as we understand it now, is basically a sales job around deep data mining on the other side of natural language processing. Anyway, so space aliens can't create life. The ever-present now, it can be thought of as the bubble in which you live, that the future comes in and departs as the past. But the ever-present now is always there with you in it, and that's all you ever have. If you are astute, the distance, the duration between you and the manifestation of the future, which is milliseconds, but we can get into to that at some other point. It's not even milliseconds, it's trillionths of a second. But that area of time in the ever-present now is malleable, and it is from there that we get all forms of magic, all forms of miracles. You know, the woman who flips the car up off the kid to save the kid, right? That kind of thing, where, you know, she's 4'7" and, you know, she shouldn't be able to lift a car, right? And in the moment, in that instant, there's no barrier to her doing that because everything is malleable. It's not like solid in matter. It's still in an energetic, dynamic state. This is what Cozy Rev was at great lengths to tell people, and most people just don't grasp it. But it syncs up with a lot of the stuff in the martial arts tradition and the yogic tradition, and in like some very esoteric parts of Jain religion and the Sikh religion and so on, right? Is this idea that within that space, nothing is solid and everything is malleable. And you get such miracles as a result of that. I think that's about it. Really, the demonstration that we are going to get at some point here in our future, but in a near enough term within our future that it's showing up in my data, is it's not going to be like all the clocks stopping or something like that, and it may have to be pointed out to people that it involved time. Okay, but and it also could be that it's all language. So it could be that the federal government guys come on out and say that, you know, Maybe, so this would be very fitting, okay? And it may be that the federal government's going to come on out and say something bizarre that'll skate right over the heads of most of the normies, but it will shock all the physicists, because maybe they'll come on out and they'll say something like, we had a battleship-sized UFO hovering over a nuke plant. All of the comms in the nuke plant, all of the radios, the telephones, all of that shit ceased working instantly. Every electrical motor in the nuke plant ceased working instantly, but it didn't blow up. Now, that would be extremely shocking to all of the physicists. It'd just blow them right away if something like that came out. And that would fit the parameters of what I've got in the data in terms of the emotional impact of this is going to be huge on the science guys, and it'll take some time. It'll even take some time to flow through all the science guys to produce the same level of shock. And then it'll take quite a bit of time for it to go through, quite a bit of duration for it to go through the rest of the global population until we all are having some grasp of what's going on and the amount of energy and everything that was required to do that, and the amount of sophisticated knowledge that was required for this demonstration. So maybe the demonstration has already happened and we're just going to be told about it, or maybe it has yet to occur and it'll be occurring shortly in our future. This information has some connections to temporal markers on cryptos and changes in the social order in terms of how people start interacting and thinking about science and colleges and this sort of thing. It's going to be a big deal, although that level of the impact is going to take some time to flow out. Anyway, so just wanted to give you a little heads up on this. I don't think there's anything else there. Looking at my notes here. No, that's it. Anyway, keep up on your Japanese yoga and doing your meditation. Get yourself as close to the ever-present now as you possibly can. That's where all the interesting shit happens.